Around here, and I kind of am quite honoured to have you all giving up your lunch, getting a free lunch, but giving up your lunch time to come and listen, which is good, which is a good sign actually. The original topic for this talk was a life coaching approach to personal impact. I should probably explain a bit on who I am. Am I in?
Yeah, that's fine.
Because it's been filmed, I believe, and sent all the way to Oxford or something.
And probably New York.
And probably New York.
Lots of all the officers who asked to see it.
This is my Rob De Niro, New York. So clearly I've done a bit of acting in my life, and I also teach screen acting various places, and I am also published author of a life coaching approach to screen acting, which is published by yourselves, which is very nice indeed. So the talk was on a life coaching approach to personal impact. So I think it's probably useful for me to explain what those two things are, life coaching and then personal impact, as far as I see it. So for me, life coaching is a detailed, positive, focused exploration on what you want from your lives. It's about creating clarity and fulfillment. So what that means is it's about you working out what you want in life and getting there as quickly as possible. And it's done in a very positive way, and the negative stuff's either put aside or kicked to touch or got rid of. So it's very much about positive stuff. Does that, anyone need more explanation on life coaching? Okay, so the personal impact side for me is two things. It's two sides of a coin. One of them is how you present yourselves to people, and the other side is how people receive that presentation. And my belief is that you can't really affect what other people think of you, really. You can think you can, but it's very difficult to do that, especially if the other person's had a really bad day, or doesn't like, or you might remind them of their granddad who used to beat them when they were a kid, or something. You can't really affect that much how other people see you. All you can really do is affect how you present yourself to the world. And my feeling is that is helped by knowing who you are as a person. So once you know who you are as a person more clearly, then you're able to honour that and to be that. And if people like you, they like you. And if they don't, they don't. I was talking to somebody last week. My kids have got a learning mentor at school, and the learning mentor every year explains to the teachers, the new teachers of my kids, about me. Because they say you'll get used to his jokes. He might come across as being a bit weird, but actually when you get to know him, you can see he's not a bad bloke, blah, 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 blah. So I found out quite a long time ago that I was in Thailand on the beach, and there was a couple of Canadian girls, and one of them said, be yourself, man, be yourself. It took me 8 hours. They went through the whole thing. Be yourself. What does she mean? I think the magic mushroom omelette, allegedly, might have had some impact on the way on the way my journey and my thinking went. But at the end of that thinking process, I thought to myself, I can only be me. I can't put myself. I can't be an individual thing to all of you people in this room. I would just go crazy. If I was trying to sell something to you, which in a way I am, but if I was trying to sell you a product and trying to get in to each of you and connect with each of you, I can't contort myself to be what I think you might or might not want from me. All I can do is be myself. And the fact that I can be myself, the majority, hopefully, of the people in this room it's not important for you to like me, but you will like what I'm saying, or you might relate to what I'm saying. And if you don't, well, that's also fair enough. I ain't going to be able to do anything about that, especially on a group basis. So when you come to doing meetings and presentations, really the most important starting point for yourselves is yourselves, I think. So what is a good starting point for yourself? Well, in my coaching, I do a lot, because I do live coaching for actors and writers and some bankers and all sorts of people. And in my coaching, we start off, near the start of our conversations, with working out what values are. Now, before I became a life coach, I didn't really know what values were. I'd heard the word before, but I didn't really understand it. But what values are to me are the foundation stones of who you are as a person. They're the building blocks of you. They're what makes you tick. So, for example, my values are honesty, integrity, fun, personal development, hard work, and variety and creativity. And I'll give you an example of why this is important with myself. And then, I'm encouraging you to think about how the values can help you and break them down. If any of you do buy the book, it's not all about actors and acting. There are sections in there on values and how you can work on your own values and how you can work them out yourselves and get deeper and deeper into it. But when your values are resonating, when they are really pumping, then so are you. You can walk through walls, metaphorically. When you, it's what's called when they're resonating, when it's vibrating. But when they're not present in sufficient quantity or quality, I guess, then that's when things feel dissonant, or in modern parlance, a little bit crap. It's like you sort of, it's not really a swear word, exactly like it. When things they don't feel good. And you can be sitting there during the day thinking, I'm really not feeling happy and comfortable with myself. And I've got stuff to do today. But if you work out your values, which I'll go into a little bit more as we go through, if you work out what your values are, you can look at your top 10 values and think, well, I feel a little bit crap because I don't have any creativity in my life at the moment. So what am I going to do about that? Well, I'm going to go at lunchtime into the square and I'm going to draw a tree, or I'm going to sign up to an improvisation class, or I'm going to read a book on poetry and try to really understand, what it is all about. But you can start working incrementally, a little bit at a time. You can work about blowing up your balloon in a way. So, if you think you're not feeling very good, it's like this, and bit by bit, one thing, it blows you up. So, for example. And I'm going to jump around all over the place here, but I will bring it all back. The incremental thing for me is there's this thing called the theory of marginal gains. Has anyone not heard of the theory of marginal gains? So a few people have not heard of it. There was the theory of marginal gains is basically all the little bits add up to a much bigger thing. It's like there's the word synergy. And to give you an example of that, it came to the fore in the 2012 Olympic cycling team. And this guy called Dave Brailsford, who's now Sir Dave Brailsford, took every single element of the British cycling squad, and the British cycling squad had not won anything ever. Maybe they might have won one thing sometime, possibly, but they weren't winning anything. So what he did was he took every single element of the whole process and said to improve it by 1%, a marginal gain, a very small gain. So what he did was they took the vans that transported the bikes around and they painted the inside of them white so that they would be able to see any dirt that was in this van. So any dirt that might get stuck into the bike, into the workings of the bike. Everybody had to carry a hand sanitizer dispenser so that they didn't pass on illnesses to each other. I believe there's a bit of your air conditioning is in this place might be giving people a bit of a few colds and stuff that might be going around. Well, if I was Sir Dave Brailsford, I'd give you all a little squeegee hand sanitizer so you can shake hands with people without passing on illness and disease to them. So, and then when they went through the bike, they improved every element of the bike by 1%. And what happened was, the British cycling team won almost everything. They went from almost nothing to almost everything. And if you look now, the British cycling is at the top of the world. I mean, for the last, however many years, it's seven years since the 2012 Olympics, there's been pretty much a British winner of the Tour de everything, really. So what I'm asking you to do is to look at look in a way, and we'll come to perfectionism in a minute maybe, but I'm asking you to look, instead of, I need to change everything. I'm going to a meeting tomorrow and I'm really nervous. I'm doing a presentation and I'm not really, I'm asking you to look at the little things. Make sure that your pens are working. And it sounds silly, but it's true, because very often people go up to a presentation, as I did when I was recommended by Lisa to check the pens, and I checked, you check the pens that they're working. The amount of times I've been up to check my pen and it's not been working. These are little things that you can affect to make yourself, to blow up your balloon, to give yourself more what is called confidence. I believe that confidence is gained by a series of minor successes. I don't think, you can't buy confidence on Amazon or a book from Bloomsbury on confidence, get confidence. Here, I'm going to go and buy it off the shelf. My belief is that you get confidence by a series of successes. And these successes can be anything, like when you're drunk and you can tie up your own shoelaces, you feel automatically, hey, this is great. And just little things that all add up to this bigger part. Because if somebody says, I love your top, you might feel great for a little bit, but then afterwards you might think, actually, they just said that because they were being polite. They don't mean that. So, but if you believe that you walk out like your shirt that you were talking about with the girl who was on reception, she was saying, I love your shirt. That made you feel good, didn't it?
Well, I said it to her as well.
You said it to her as well. But the thing is, if you genuinely believe that you love your shirt, it's much better than if somebody else is telling you that you've got a nice shirt. But it is a nice shirt. Sort of pseudo Paul Smith. Okay, so where are my values? So I'll talk about how values can help personally for me. As you can see, I'm a fairly confident person, and I have been probably since I was a kid, but lots of it from there to there was all based on insecurity, and me wanting what other people had, and wanting to be somebody else, and everyone was better looking than me, more clever than me, more everything than me. And that happened for quite a long time, possibly until that incident in Thailand, I think. And I was 29, I think, when that happened. And I'd already had a very successful business career by that stage. I was divisional manager of a really, some of the older people might remember a company called Olivetti. It was a big typewriter computer company, Italian company, massive in those days. And I was one of their senior people at the age of 28, 29. So I had lots of reason to be confident and have impact. But really inside there was lots of stuff that I wasn't really comfortable with, and I'll come to that in a second as well. But one of the realizations for me recently, about 4 or 5 years ago, my coach, we talked about my values, and I recognized that variety was probably one of my predominant values. And the reason it was significant for me, drilling down and working out what that meant, was that I've always done loads of things. I lived in New York as an actor, and I used to do TV, film, commercials, radio, handed out leaflets on the street dressed as a chicken. I did the whole lot. And I thought to myself for a long time, well, if I'd have just focused, if I'd have had a coach when I started out, I'd have been able to focus on one thing and just go for that. I'd have just done TV drama, and I'd have been there. But what and I always sort of had this, I would do all these things, and part of me was always a bit, if only I'd have just focused on the one thing. Then I recognized that actually a really important part of me is the variety of it all. The fact that I do all of these different things, the fact that I do teach now, and I coach, and I do little bits of acting, and I do some other things, and I've got 2 small children, and I've got family outside of this, and I like going on. This is all part of who I am. And the moment that I recognized that as essential for me, I was free. And it allowed me to concentrate on all of those elements fully and wholeheartedly. And everything took off after that. I mean everything. I've got this image in my mind. I went to Brighton yesterday with an old friend of mine, and they got the amusement arcade there where they have the horses, and you're pressing the button, and the horses are all trying to beat each other. And I have this image in my head that our lives are a bit like that in a way. That I'm pressing this, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I've got to get there, I've got to get there. But then, it doesn't mean that the rest of the horses are all dead. It just means I'm not pressing them at the moment. So what I'm able to do now is I'm able to go, now I'm going to do this, I'm going to press this button, I'm going to press this button, and I just do all that wholeheartedly because I know that all of the rest of the stuff is there. So my point is that once I recognize that a particular value of mine, what it was and how I could improve it, it again blew up this version of me, this balloon that is me. So, values, I would encourage you, we could do an interactive thing here, and I could ask somebody to pick out a value and we could drill down on what that means, and then you could do one thing, a marginal gain that would increase your score from, say, I'm currently 6 out of 10 hard work at the moment, and it doesn't make, because what's really important for me, hard work is a 9 or 10 out of 10 for me. I need hard work, I need to be working hard, that's who I am. It doesn't fit everybody by any stretch, but for me, I need to be working, I really do. So I would think, if I'm feeling, I wake up and freelance particularly, so if I wake up in the morning, I've got nothing to do, and I think, and I feel, ugh, then I would look and think, right, what am I going to do? I'm going to look at my value of hard work is non-existent today. So I'm going to do one thing to get me off my backside to be doing some work. So then you can start, all the horses eventually, gradually, start moving towards what is some sort of finish line, even though we don't really have a finish line. We have a series of staging posts along the way. Is it okay? Anyone need me to go to values a little bit more? Okay, which of course I could, but we're not going to. So, the opposite of values, what happens is, your values actually are yours as well. Very often our parents give them, they say you are this and you are that, and the teachers do, and society does. But really it's the personal exploration of what is actually important for you, not what somebody else is giving you. Now, on the other side of values, it's on the other side of values, on the other side of us, we have these things called saboteurs. And these are the things that get in our way. The job of the saboteur is to keep everything the same. It's to stop you moving forward. It's to maintain the status quo. And very often our saboteurs don't feel threatening to us. We're very, we've had them a long time. Things like, my dad used to say to me a lot, don't get too excited because it might not happen. And I lived, for donkey's years with that belief of, well, I better not get too excited because it might not happen. And when it did happen, he'd say, well, it's going to end, so don't get to it, don't get too attached to it. And I'm sure probably 2 or 3 people in this room have had similar sort of thing, But there are lots and lots of saboteur comments that we don't know are negative things, but they are. And we have things called limiting beliefs, which are, when you do your presentations, it's things like, I'm boring, my voice is boring, I don't know what I'm talking about, I don't know anything about marketing, I don't like networking, I don't like meeting people. All of these negative limiting belief kinds of things, which the saboteur is putting in your ear to keep you where you are, in that little comfort zone down here. And you've also got things like, has anyone here not heard of the imposter syndrome? Anyone not heard of the imposter syndrome? Wow, great, there's just 2 people. This is a fantastic thing. Briefly on for these 2, and for also to maybe clarify for some people not sure, the imposter syndrome was some research done in the late 1970s, and it was research done on highly successful women. That's how it started off. And the researchers found that the vast majority of highly successful women thought they were frauds, thought they were imposters, thought they were going to get found out that they actually weren't very good, thought that they were only got this success out of being a fraud. And I remember when I first heard this, I was on a plane coming back from, it's all in the book, when I was coming back from America with a director, we were doing a big corporate thing, and that resonated so much with me from when I was in the business world. I used to get promoted all the time, and I was fighting to get promoted all the time because I was afraid that they're going to find out that I wasn't very good at sales, I wasn't very good at managing people when I became a manager, and I wasn't good at looking after this whole thing. It resonates with you, doesn't it? It does. She's like, oh. But it's true. They found the vast majority of successful women had this. They then expanded the research into successful men. And they found out, and the reason it's successful people, because these are people who in all of our terms have made it. They're all the ones who are doing, like we look up to, and they're successful. And I'm going to give you a quote, which I was looking to see some relevant quotes for people. I've got Maya Angelou, the first one. She says, I've written 11 books, but each time I think, uh-oh, they're going to find out now. I run a game on everybody and they're going to find me out. I mean, that's Maya Angelou, who's quite well respected as an authoress, I believe. And there's somebody else who's quite well respected, is Sheryl Sandberg, who's head of Yahoo now. Yahoo, I think. And in her book, Lean In, every time I was called on in class, I was sure that I was about to embarrass myself. Every time I took a test, I was sure that it had gone badly. And every time I didn't embarrass myself or even excelled, I believed that I'd fooled everyone yet again. One day soon, the jig would be up. This phenomenon of capable people being plagued by self-doubt has a name, the imposter syndrome. Both men and women are susceptible to the imposter syndrome, but women tend to experience it more intensely and be more limited by it. That's it. I mean, she's probably the foremost businesswoman in the world saying that. And Tina Fey, who's a foremost comedian in the world, the beauty of the imposter syndrome is you vacillate between extreme egomania and a complete feeling of, I'm a fraud, oh God, they're on to me, I'm a fraud. Just to ride the egomania when it comes just try to ride the egomania when it comes and enjoy it, and then slide through the idea of fraud. So in a way what she's saying there is recognizing that you have this syndrome makes it easier to ignore it. What I would suggest to you all is to think about negative comments that you might give yourself. And I get this, all of my clients, we kind of go through this conversation. And we'll sit there talking to each other, and I'll say, that's one. And they'll go, oh yeah. And that's one. They go, oh yeah. And so you've got, possibly, you've got lots of them that you might not even recognize as being bad. So think about it, listen to yourself, listen to the things that are holding you back, and bringing it back to this presentation skills and personal impact. It's essential that you walk into a room, shut up, saboteur. So what happens is, what I would encourage you to do is to give your saboteur a name, give them a physical shape, give them a voice. If I think of some clients, saboteurs, one of my guys, his was one of the gremlins from the movie Gremlin. He was like on his shoulder all the time, going, you're never going to be able to do that. You're too old, you're getting too old, you're never going to get on, you're way too old, you're old, you missed the boat, should have done it years ago. And so what he does is he's got this gremlin doing that, he just does that. And for him, because he's practiced doing that now, it's like saying shut up to that negative voice. So he does that. And I got another one, her husband, her ex-husband, which is probably more to the point, made a wet room. Spent £30,000 redoing a wet room in their apartment. They don't have 30,000, but he made her do it. So now her saboteur is her husband, ex-husband, who she puts into the wet room when she wants them to shut up. I've got others who put them in the bin, put them in boxes. I've got some who just mine. When I was writing this book, which is available from all the bookstores and your own website, at a discount, I believe, because they work here. When I was writing this book, I'm not a writer as such. I've written stuff. I would never go around. Before I'd written this, I'd written a couple of things here and there, but not really. So I had this thing, and I'd sit at my hand, I'd be going, my saboteur was Droopy, the cartoon character, because I can't even bother doing it, I don't want to do that. So I put a picture of Droopy next to my computer. And every time I started going, I looked at the picture, I thought, well, I don't want to be that. So I kind of shoved it aside and got on, and here I am standing in front of you today, really. So, so we've got these saboteurs, which are limiting beliefs, imposter syndrome. A quick question, how many of you are perfectionists? A few of you, maybe a quarter of you are perfectionists. So the question I would ask you perfectionists is, name one thing, and it's a rhetorical question, name one thing in the universe that's perfect. And I would say that a couple of you might make a joke about, maybe his shirt or something, I'm not sure. Oh, not a joke, sorry. I mean, somebody might say his shirt. But the reality is that there is nothing in the universe really that is absolute, or there might be some things, but not really, that is perfect. So what you perfectionists are doing is you are searching for something that is unobtainable. And the reaction of that, the impact of that, is twofold, really. One of them is it's so unobtainable that I'm not even going to bother starting. I'm never going to get to be chief whatever it is. I'm never going to get that. I'm never going to do that. So why bother? And the other alternative is that you don't enjoy the journey. So because you're always struggling, the top, you've got to get to the top, you've got to get to the top. And that's all you can think of. I've got to get to that perfection, and this isn't perfection, so you don't enjoy it. And that's kind of a waste of a life, really. I'm sure lots of people in the room might agree that. Not a waste of a life, but it's a waste of time, definitely. You might as well enjoy it. So if I think about this as mountain climbing, I think I want to get to the top of Mount Everest. And if I'm just looking at the top of Mount Everest the whole time, and I'm doing it, I'm going to miss the whole journey to get there. But if I look at Mount Everest, right, okay, it's up there, I know it's up there, what do I need to do first? I need to go to a shop and buy some boots, I need to get a map, I need to get an ice pick, I need to get a backpack, I need to hire a Sherpa, a coach or something, I need to do all these things. And you do all that, and you've had a great, I really enjoyed today, that was great, I'm ready. And then you go to the base camp, and you think, okay, the mountain's still, top of the mountain's still there, that's why you're doing it, but you get to base camp, and you think, that was a brilliant hike up to this base camp. The next one is, the next base is only 50 meters away. And it's going to take you all day because you've got to go all the way down there and then all the way back across this glacier or something. And you've got to kind of get over, and it's taking you all day to get 50 meters. If you're a perfectionist and you're just going for the top thing, you're not going to enjoy it. But if you enjoy the experience, you can sit there in your tent at night and go, what a day! I feel ready for tomorrow. And it all builds, one bit builds on the other. So eventually you get to the top of the mountain, and it was great. And then you think, right, what's next? So the relevance, I'm aware that this is all well and good, but what's the relevance to you? I think there's you can understand, obviously, all of you apart from 4 of you are very intelligent people. I'll tell you which 4 later, but you all get kind of what I'm talking about here. But really thinking about hooking it onto, going to meetings with other people, doing presentations for other people. I'm going to have a perfect presentation this afternoon, and then one little thing goes wrong. Like, as you can see, I've planned this meeting, this presentation a bit in my head. I planned the opening lines, and I knew roughly where we were going. And there's a couple of times that I've kind of gone in the wrong direction, like I'm doing now. I'm completely diverting out of what I was going to say. But I feel all right with that, because it's not supposed to be the perfect presentation. It isn't. So when you do meetings, you're going to make mistakes. I guess people say it's good to make mistakes. Richard Branson, or quotes him about you've got to make mistakes. That's what it's all about, is making mistakes. And they're right, but you don't have to go out to try and make mistakes. You just get on with stuff, and if something goes wrong, then as long as you know where you're going, then that's kind of all that really matters. So when I talk about a life coaching approach, what I mean by that is having some clarity on where you want to get. So if it is a presentation, I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but if it is a presentation, what is it you want from that presentation? If it is a business meeting, why are you there? I I would guarantee you if I asked, I'm not going to do it because some of your bosses might be in the room, but I would say that probably half of you in this room, if I say, do you ever have meetings that you don't know what the point of being there is, I can see a load of smiles, you resonate with that. It's true. So really, it's up to you to ask what the point of the meeting is. It's up to the person who's running the meeting to tell everyone what the purpose of the meeting is. If I was going to do a presentation on trying to sell books into foils, I would stand there and you're all the people from foils, I'd say, right, what we're trying to do today is, what I need from this presentation today is I want you to buy a load of books from me. And then they know where we're going, and it keeps you on track. So having a clear destination helps the rest of it to not be so important. Like if I stray from what we're talking about, I'm not thinking, oh my God, I'm sort of floundering around it. I know where we're going with this conversation. I know where we're going with it, so I can be free. So limiting beliefs, imposter syndrome, perfectionism, they kind of are not your friends, really. And you've got a choice. You've got a choice whether you want to be that person or not. I mean, I know we have at least one Australian in the room, and they call us whinging poms. I don't want to hang around with people who are whinging and whining, complaining all the time. I used to work with this guy. He used to do a lot of sales training, and he used to say these every time somebody comes up to the water cooler and starts going, oh no, this is terrible, and see what she's done and he's done that, and just leave them, just say thank you and off, because that the only place, and there's probably people in this room who do that as well, probably. The only thing that will happen is it will take you into this downward spiral, which doesn't help you be yourselves. And even I would challenge those people that if we looked at their values, they probably are unhappy in some area of their life. Not unhappy, but they're probably not. They're not fulfilling an element of them that needs to be fulfilled. It might be that they think they should have achieved something, but 20 years they've been overlooked. So it's much easier to whine about something than it is to do something about it. Much easier, because you think it's too late, I'm too old, But there is elements of within what that goal is that they might be able to satisfy within themselves. So if it is about learning something, I wanted to move up because I needed to learn stuff, and I'm not learning anything. Well, there are things that you can learn, there are things you can do about that, etc. Okay, so any questions so far? I realise anything. We'll do questions as we go if you want. Any questions so far? Anything? Anyone bored yet? Bored? No? Okay. Right. So we've got values and the things that are standing against us. So bringing it back into the purpose of this talk, which is personal impact, with a view to considering business meetings and presentations. I'm going to pick out a couple of examples in my head as they come. The clarity, again, as I've already said, the clarity of what you want from that meeting is essential. Now, I would say, I'd probably ask, I'd ask if, what's the one thing that stands in your way most when it comes to meetings and presentations? And a lot of people would say nerves. Anyone suffer from nerves going into meetings? Yeah, there's, a lot of heads and nodding. Now, if I say to the people who've got nerves that the same physiological characteristics for nerves they're the same for excitement, that you get sweaty palms, your heart rate increases, you get slightly nervous, those sorts of things. They're the same physiological characteristics. So if I say to those of you who get nerves, if I tell you that, does it make any difference to you? Anyone? A small nod from anyone? My encouragement for you is next time you feel nervous is to say to yourself, it's excitement. I do it with my kids. I don't think it's treading on too many toes here, and a couple of people in the room know this already, but I've adopted kids. And my daughter particularly is a very nervous, neurotic girl. She's 10.